Hello everyone in the Secrets to Sleep Baby and Toddler Sleep Up group. My name is Courtney. I'm your host. I'm a pediatric sleep consultant and I help families get a great night's sleep. Today is our How to Stop Rocking Your Baby to Sleep workshop, okay? So this workshop is more designed for those who are 4 months of age and older. So this could include toddlers that are being rocked and that sort of a thing, but not so much newborn babies, okay? If you have a newborn baby and you're kind of looking for newborn baby tips and help, post below newborn baby and I can send you a link to a resource for that, okay? All right, let's go into this. How to stop rocking your baby to sleep. I have 3 main points that we're going to go over, okay? So one is kind of that we need to learn a little bit about the rocking and, recognize that it's kind of the problem that's causing the wake-ups, okay? So that's one reason. Number 2 is how to set ourselves up for success when we're working on, breaking habits of such things like rocking to sleep. And number 3 is like the method and strategy I recommend. So I know that there's some people who are like, yes, Courtney, I want to stop rocking my baby to sleep. That would be delightful. I don't know how. Today is how we go into the details of how I recommend to do it gradually, a gentle method as opposed to just laying a baby in bed to cry, okay? All right, let's go into this today. If you're here and you're watching, post below, hey, I'm watching. Let's see if it pops up so that I can, make this a little bit interactive. Post, the age of your baby and I rock my baby to sleep, something like that, okay? Let's go into this. Okay, so point number 1. So we actually have to recognize that the rocking is the thing that is causing the wake-ups, okay? Let's go into this a little bit. So rocking doesn't just mean rocking, okay? Rocking to me is a term that I use to describe basically motion. A baby requires motion to fall asleep. So for example, I'll have some families say, well, my baby doesn't need to be rocked to sleep all the time. Sometimes, they fall asleep in, the car while we're driving, the stroller, sometimes it's not rocking, it's more swaying, it's more bouncing on the ball. Okay, so to me as a sleep consultant, these are all different forms of motion, and to our baby, these are the exact same. It means, hi Brianna. So I see that it is popping up, so I can see your comments, so that's great. So different forms of motion. To me, they're the same. To a baby, they're the same. I know that to the parents that these are different in our minds because we're like, it's a completely different motion, but they are all forms of motion that our children are requiring to fall asleep, okay? So these are the reasons that babies tend to wake up frequently in the night, okay? Our babies can, be hungry, especially if they are, 6 months of age and under, they likely still require some feeds or so. Usually I would say if it was just the feed and they were just hungry, they can feed with their eyes open and awake. They can take a full feed. We would then be able to lay them into their bed and they would roll back asleep. But a baby that's really hooked onto some rocking would, possibly take a feed and then still be rocked to sleep after, okay? So this is how we know, it's the rocking that's definitely the culprit here. It's not necessarily, especially if you have a baby that's waking up every 2-3 hours in the night, especially if they were, 3 months of age and they managed to sleep long stretches and suddenly they're waking up more frequently, we know that this is not suddenly this desire or need for hunger or for food. This is definitely a rock to sleep, motion to sleep association, okay? They need this thing in order to fall asleep. Okay, families, this is one thing I think is so important. If you have a baby that needs to be rocked to sleep, for bedtime, for in the night, for naps, that sort of a thing, every family always shows me their baby's schedule and says, here's my schedule, am I doing something wrong here? Or this is our bedtime routine. Should we change something? I just want to make it so clear. If you have a baby that needs to be rocked in order to fall asleep, we don't need to, we might need to change wake windows, of course, if we're doing something that's, pretty outside of, the loop or whatever, but outside of the norm. But in general, when it comes to babies that need to be rocked to sleep, that is the thing that we need to solve. That is the culprit. That is the thing that is interfering with their sleep cycles, right? So, kind of my baby wakes up frequently. He needs to be rocked to sleep every couple hours in the night. Is there something wrong with our schedule? Well, I don't know, but I definitely do know if your baby needs to be rocked to sleep, and falls asleep while rocking and waking up in the night to be rocked. That is 100% the thing that needs to be worked on in order for your baby to have a great sleep. Schedule would be secondary to that. Maybe we should look at the schedule and see if there is something that's, not so good there. But definitely babies that need to be rocked to sleep wake up frequently and need us to work on exactly that habit. It's not another thing that we need to focus on, okay? always something I want to clarify because it comes up a lot, okay? Yeah, because there's two different things when it comes to sleep. This is good biology background. I know not everyone wants to know the details, but there are two things. One is called sleep pressure. So this is basically the amount of time since the last time your baby slept. So, this is kind of more related to wake windows. And then there's the other, cycle that our body uses when it comes to sleep, and it's called our circadian rhythm. Okay? I feel like everyone knows about sleep pressure. They go, like, I'm moving naps around because I notice if nap is at this time and then we try and put them to bed at this time, they're not tired yet. Like, parents know about this one, but it does feel like circadian rhythm is like this secret that no one knows about. And that's why I have this Facebook group called The Secrets to Sleep. I don't want it to be a secret anymore. I want it to be well known that we have two systems when it comes to our body clocks. One is our sleep pressure, distance between naps, things like that. The other is our circadian rhythm, our body clock, and how our body, processes sleep cycles and links sleep cycles, okay? So if we rock our babies to sleep, it interferes with our body's ability to connect sleep cycles, okay? And that is what we are working on today. It's not related to wake windows. That's an important thing, but it's separate with our two different systems. Okay, and then the last part of, just note number one on kind of some of this, like learning that it is the culprit, okay? We have to kind of accept that it's time, right? So this is something that I talk to a lot of families about, that like, some families are like, I don't know, but if I stop rocking, it's going to be tough, and it's going to be like this and like that. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's going to be tough. You know what I mean? So sometimes we have to hit that point when we're like, all right, it's time. All right. So we're going to go all in. We're going to do a process. We're going to set ourselves up for success. We're going to hold on to a strategy. We're going to make this change. We're done with the rocking. Okay. I think sometimes I hear a lot of things like, okay, well, maybe I'll try that. And I'm like, oh no, they use the try word. When we're breaking habits, we are either breaking the habit or we're going to give it a try, and we're probably not going to succeed, because breaking habits is actually a lot of hard work, and it really requires, consistency, doing it every time, and us being very all in. So post below if you are all in. You're like, yeah, it's time. I want to stop rocking my baby to sleep. I want to be all in. Okay. Giving it a try it leaves open the door for us to be like, maybe not. Maybe I don't actually want to stop rocking my baby to sleep. So let's go for the all in. Okay. Okay. So the next point is that we are going to set ourselves up for success. So anytime we're making a change to our baby's sleep, we want to set ourselves up for success. Same idea as we don't want to have the I'm just going to give it a try mentality. We want to be ready to go, and we actually have to do some setting up for success, okay? So one thing I tell families, to set themselves up for success is actually that I tell my families I work with that this is hard work, okay? We actually expect sleep to get worse for usually at least a couple weeks while we are doing a sleep training process before it gets better, okay? So I find that families really want it to be like, okay, sleep just kind of gradually, increases and gets better as we do this process. I always tell families, okay, it's like sleep is bad and then it gets worse. This process, it looks a lot of like up and downs before at the very end of the process, sleep will be better. We will correct the problem with this process, but it does make sleep kind of seem like it's all out of control in the beginning. So it's always important to note, we have an all-in mentality. Sleep is going to get worse for a while. I'm not going to give in the middle of the night. I'm going to do this process every single time for all sleep, because I know that this is the thing that is interfering with my child's sleep, and I want it to, improve. I want everything to get better. Okay. Yeah. And that's also why I do like a very one-on-one program for this, because it is a tough process. So if you do want support with it, that is what I do. I help families through a process like this. Okay. Another way to set yourself up for success is to have the whole family, whether if your family is yourself and your husband or your spouse, like to make sure you're both on the same page about it. But also, any nanny, daycare, etc. We're all on the same page. We are all doing the same thing for every single sleep. Okay. We have to be consistent when breaking habits. Something I hear all the time. Okay. 2 things. We'll go over both of them because they're just so important things that keep popping up. Okay. One is, hey, Courtney, I watched your video. I've been doing exactly what you said. It hasn't been working. I've been, doing this thing all night long, but then for days I've been contact napping and doing stroller rides. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's never gonna work. Not trying to laugh because I know that it's like, this is something I hear all the time, but it's like, okay, when we are breaking habits, we actually have to break the habit 100% of the time for every sleep. If you are rocking to sleep sometimes, like rocking to sleep for naps, but you're doing this process for nighttime, it's never going to work, okay? 100% of sleeps every time for every wake up in the night, all the naps for the day for at least the 2-3 weeks while you're doing the sleep training process. After that, obviously, if you're like, okay, every once in a while we go on a day trip and, my child falls asleep in the car, that's totally fine. That's understandable. But when we are working on breaking a habit, we really want to be consistent every single time, every sleep. Number 2, the other thing I hear a lot is, I was doing the exact method you said, but I was also doing it with a pacifier. Oh, okay. So that is very different to me, whether we are doing this method with or without a pacifier. And here's the kind of general rule, okay? If your child is old enough to roll over, grab their pacifier, and put it back inside their mouth on their own, if they can do that process on their own, then that is totally fine to have a pacifier in place, as long as you are not the one grabbing their pacifier and passing it to them, okay? If your child is not old enough yet that they need you to put the pacifier in for them, they can't do that process, I usually say from about 4 to 8 months of age, okay? Then this is called parental help. You have to go in, you have to put it in their mouth for them. We cannot do a sleep training method with any form of parental help, until the very end of the method. So it means that if you have a 4 to 8 month old baby and you are using a pacifier, we would also have to ditch the pacifier. Most families are like, but I don't want to do it cold turkey. My answer is, we're not doing it cold turkey. We are using other modes of comfort in the meantime for this situation with rocking to sleep babies. Our mode of comfort will be rocking, but we do have to ditch the passy right off the bat or it will not work, okay? You can have the passy for daytime use, something like that, but not for falling asleep because it's the same thing, that it interferes with the ability to connect sleep cycles, okay? All right, I think we're on to number 3. Is everyone watching? Is it good? Is it helpful so far? Are we ready to go into a strategy? How are you guys feeling? Someone said that they broke the habit of nursing and then their baby needs to be rocked to sleep. This is actually incredibly common for me. It means that we had one form of parental help, that's what I call it, parental help, and then what we want to do is we want to actually break the habit by decreasing the amount that the baby needs it, but very common for a family to take one form of parental help, and instead of decreasing it, we switch it out with another form of parental help. So common to me. This is definitely something we want to keep in mind. We want to break the habit of rocking to sleep, not by adding in another habit. We want to actually decrease all forms of parental help. One is not better than another. So this could even take like padding into consideration. We don't want to swap out rocking with padding. We want to take rocking, padding, feeding, etc., all down so that this habit decreases, so the little one learns to self-settle. Okay, so let's go into the strategy that I recommend, okay? So I definitely recommend my amazing method, of course. There are different methods. There's, probably things you've heard of. There's camping out. There's a Ferber method. There is obviously a cry it out method. I don't personally recommend it, but it is very common for people to use it, okay? There are different methods. The entire purpose of these methods is for a child to learn how to self-settle, okay? One really good explanation for basically like, why is everyone so sleep training crazy these days? Sleep training is just a term. You don't have to use the term, you don't have to like the term, okay? Basically, what we are trying to do is have our little one learn how to self-settle, okay? So as humans, we all go from deep sleep into light sleep and deep sleep into light sleep all night long, okay? Deep, light, deep, light. As adults, we spend a lot more time in deep sleep. Our sleep cycles are much longer. Babies and toddlers, it's the opposite. They spend so much time in light sleep and their sleep cycles are very short, okay? So basically, this is one thing that is really important to note. If you are rocking your baby to sleep, they fall asleep in your arms, you place them into their bed or their crib, they go, they're in deep sleep now. Great. And then as soon as they go into their light sleep, Some might be able to connect some sleep cycles. Some are literally waking up every hour. I know that there's those mamas. I was that with a breastfeed to sleep association for a while. So, before I was a sleep consultant, I feel you on it. But basically, this is what's going on. When your child is in their light point in their sleep, they can't get back into their deep sleep alone. They don't have this skill. They don't know how to do that. They need to be picked up, rocked back to sleep, placed into bed in their deep sleep cycle, and then as soon as they go into their light sleep again, they wake up. Okay, so that is what is going on there. Okay, this also often results in short naps. So some families are contact napping. That is different if you have a baby sleeping on you, or if you are doing a stroller nap, a car seat nap. You are helping your baby connect sleep cycles when you go around the block and you keep walking for 2 hours, something like that. You are helping them connect sleep cycles. But for example, if you rock your baby to sleep and then they're in their deep sleep, you place them into bed and they nap for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that is because as soon as they went into their light sleep, they woke up. Okay? So babies should usually be taking long naps. So a long nap to me is, close to 2 hours. A lot of families I talk with is like, oh my goodness, that's so much sleep. Are you sure it's not too much sleep? I'm sure it's not too much sleep. Okay. Obviously different ages we're talking about. But in general, like a 4-month-old should take about 2 long 2-hour naps plus a cat nap at the end of the day. A 6-month-old to a 12-month-old should be taking about 2 long 2-hour naps. They don't really need the cat nap. A 12-month-old is usually when they start to transition to a 2-nap schedule, 1 cat nap at the beginning of the day, and then a long nap in the middle of the day. An 18-month-old to about 3.5 usually takes kind of a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. That's my quick kind of nap schedule that I go through. A lot of people are like, is this actually real? Is this something that babies do? The families that I work with when we're done, this is what they're doing. The reason why is 1, because we do a self-settling strategy and they learn how to connect sleep cycles. Huge key. Number 2 is because we do follow a set schedule. That is key because that is what our body clocks and our circadian rhythm actually requires, in order to feel sleepy at the same time of day and to be able to, have long naps. It actually is our body clock that sets to a certain time of the day, feel sleepy for the time that we put them into sleep and able to stay asleep for that 2-hour time. So that is kind of what that's about. Okay, let's go into the next point, okay? Parental help. So we talked a little bit about that, okay? So this could be padding, rocking, strollers, any form of motion. This could be anyone who is also feeding to sleep as well. Some people might be rocking to sleep and breastfeeding to sleep or bottle feeding to sleep. And we talked about pacifiers. If you have a passy baby, can't replace it, definitely recommend ditching it. Okay, there's different methods of sleep training. There's obviously more harsh methods. I like gentle methods, okay? This is the process that I like to use, okay? Basically, if we are at the place where we are rocking our child to sleep, they are falling asleep on us, we are placing them into bed, our first goal, I call it a percent boundary system. I call it my I've been calling it my gradual sleep training method because percent boundary system doesn't really sound very good, but okay. Another thing just to keep in mind is that if our children are falling asleep on us and we place them into their bed, it is the same thing as if I fell asleep on my couch downstairs and I woke up in my bedroom. Like I would wake up in the night and I would be a little bit freaked out too, be like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Or, if I fell asleep in my bed and my spouse was right next to me and I woke up and that person wasn't there anymore, again, I'd be pretty freaked out. So if your child is falling asleep on you, the last moment they were awake, you were right there, and then they're in their bed and they're alone and they don't know where they are. Like these are some pretty confusing things for our babies and toddlers, okay? So just to keep this in mind, okay? Strategy going into it, percent boundaries, okay? If we rock our baby till they are 100% asleep and then we place them into bed, they're gonna have this issue with being able to connect sleep cycles. What we actually want to do is have rocking, so final goal. So I'll tell you the final goal and then I'll go into how we're going to get there. Our goal is to have rocking as a mode of comfort, which means that we would rock them with their eyes open and awake, have our snuggles at bedtime, that sort of a thing. Final goal. I know we're not ready there yet, but we would rock them until they are, eyes open, awake, place them into bed, and they will roll over and fall asleep on their own. Okay, so this is what I do with the families that I work with. This is our final goal, and babies will start to sleep through the night at about 6 months of age. I always say 6 months of age, 1 wake up or less is our, goal. A 4-month-old, definitely about 2 wake ups in the night would be normal, and a 5-month-old, about 1 wake up in the night would be normal. Okay, so these are the age appropriate goals that the clients that I'm working with are reaching. Okay, so, and this is the method that we use. So in the beginning phase, so like a system, okay? So if we are rocking our baby until they are 100% asleep, they are doing 0% self-settling, okay? They can't do any of this process on their own. The process I like to use, okay? First of all, if we do a Ferber method, we are taking this parental help and we are putting it at 0. Our child does not know how to self-settle. This is why there is like so much crying involved and it's really tough. It's going to happen quickly that they're going to learn how to self-settle because they have no other option, but this is why it's such a brutal method, okay? The method I like to use is that we take this boundary, parental help, rocking, padding, strollers, etc. Okay? We do this until they are 90% asleep. Okay? So this to me looks like we're rocking until their eyes are closed. They're super, super, super sleepy. They're absolutely, so sleepy, but not completely asleep. We place them into bed. Okay? Everyone I talk to says, I tried that one time and then my baby cried. The answer is yes. Then we would pick up our baby and we would do the process again, okay? Rocking until super, super sleepy, place in bed, they cry. People say, then I'm going to do that, and it's going to be like an hour of me doing that, and every single time they're going to cry. The answer is it does take super long, especially on the first few nights you do it. Rock till sleepy, place in bed, they cry, we pick them up, we do the process. So the answer to kind of all the questions is kind of like we actually have to have a mindset shift of we actually, through the process of sleep training, are anticipating our children to take much longer to fall asleep because they are learning a skill. So, a few weeks from now, they are going to know how to fall asleep on their own. We will be able to place them into their bed with their eyes open and awake. They will be, done the process. And in the meantime, it's going to make us have long wake ups. It's going to be very challenging and tough, but our children are learning a skill in the middle of the night, and we will not have to do this again after 2-3 weeks of time. So it's a short-term pain, a long-term gain, sort of a system. It does not create good sleep right away, okay? There is no one who I, know on day 1, 2, 3 of sleep training who's like, oh yeah, like this is great. I'm loving this. Like everyone's like, this is really hard work. Yes, it is hard work. Sleep gets worse before it gets better, okay? So this is what we do. We do usually about 4 days, something like that, of 90% asleep. So that this can go from my baby totally can't self-settle to my baby is starting to self-settle a little bit. Then we do the next, 4 days of placing into bed at about 70% asleep. Okay, this starts to go up a little bit more. Then we do about 60% asleep. This goes up a little bit more. We do about 40% asleep. This goes up a little bit more. Usually this is kind of where we hit the point where we're kind of like, okay, if we're able to place our child into bed with their eyes kind of like, drowsy, that kind of a look. That's what I consider to be 40% asleep. Then they will start to be able to connect sleep cycles. They're kind of able to do most of this process on their own. And they will start to, sleep through the night, meaning reach their age appropriate goals. So, usually place into bed, 90% asleep. Families are like, I'm not seeing improvement yet. The answer is no, you will not see improvement at this percent boundary. We actually have to go all the way down so that we are doing little to no parental help in order for our children to then be able to connect sleep cycles and start to sleep really well. This is the process that I like to use because it is really gradual. It's not the fastest process, okay? A Ferber method, a chair method, all of these methods are way faster. Does this method work? Of course, is a question I get asked a lot. Yes, it absolutely does work, of course, if it's done correctly, okay? Some places this method go wrong is that everyone's trying to go from 100% to 90% and stop. So yes, if we stop at 90%, it's not going to work. We actually do have to continue bringing this down and down and down, okay? Rock until, less and less sleepy, placing our child into bed more and more awake over a 2-3 week period of time until we get to the point where rocking is done with eyes open, fully awake, place into bed, eyes open, fully awake. Any feed in the night would have to be kind of the same percent boundary. That's something to note because if we have a baby falling asleep on the bottle and then we're kind of, rocking them after or something like that and placing them into bed awake after, that would also, interfere with it. It means that we are trying to be consistent with all forms of parental help in the night, okay? Let me look over what else I have kind of written. Okay, I think those are some of the main things that we are doing. Main goal is to be placing the child into bed more and more awake over a 3-week period of time. I usually go from 90% to 70%. 70% might be eyes, closed for about a minute. 60% means, place into bed when eyes have just closed. 40% might mean, place into bed when eyes are, drowsy, kind of looking half open. 0% is when we are at the point where we are placing a child into bed with their eyes fully open. They're totally awake every single time. Okay? Those are, kind of the percent boundaries that I've kind of made to help families, have an understanding of it. But obviously with my clients, we go through a very extensive amount of information that I explain to them on our 2-hour consultation, where I go into depth about what each percentage looks like, how to, do this in the middle of the night when we're tired, and all of the different things, okay? So if you're interested in some support through a process like this, I am here for that, okay? So I have free sleep strategy calls, and if you want to join a program where this is the method that we use, where we don't just place our babies into bed, and you want support through something like that, some of the reasons why someone might join a sleep consulting program is if you've tried everything and you know how tough sleep training is, and you know that you need some support doing it. You know that it's not just like an easy thing that we quickly do and we easily try. It's something that's like, yeah, no, it's tough and I need someone to help me through it. If you want kind of that daily guidance, daily messaging, also like accountability, if you're the type of person who you're like, yeah, I totally give in sometimes when I'm tired in the middle of the night, having someone that you've hired and someone that's there with you being like, all right, but do you want this to work? Do you want it to work, or do you want it to, take an extra day longer? Like if you want someone to help you with accountability, that's what I'm there for. So my clients that I'm working with, we do a 2-hour consultation. We do 3 weeks of follow-up support. They are messaging me every day and asking me questions every day, kind of like, okay, well, what about this specific situation? What about when, I moved to 60% boundary and this is what it looked like? Or, can I go in between this boundary and that? Could we do like a 65% instead of this? This is what I help families do. I do have free sleep strategy calls. So I do have calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you're interested, send me a DM for a sleep strategy call. Just say free sleep strategy call and I'll send you the link to book. And we do have a promo code for Valentine's Day with a 10% off deal. Tuesday is the last day to have a call and to get the promo code, because the promo ends Thursday of next week. So kind of Tuesday would be a call, and then you'd have 2 days to book the 3 weeks to better sleep program if you're interested. The promo code, you need to type it in when you are purchasing, and it would be Valentine's Sleep. That is the code. So keep those in mind. Don't forget those. You want to have that promo code, okay? But yeah, this is the method that I like to use. I find that the clients that I work with are very happy after. They feel really good about the method that they use, that they didn't just lay their baby in bed to cry, but that they always got to pick up their baby and snuggle their baby and comfort their baby, okay? Yeah, so let me know if you want some support through something like this. I'm definitely here for you. I want to work through this method. People like that they feel good after doing the sleep training. Not only are they reaching their age-appropriate goals and having a really great sleeper, but they feel like they used a method that fits into their parenting style, which is also something I think is really important, okay? So this, my 3 weeks to better sleep program has been filling up lately, so just keep in mind that I am booking out. So if you want to get on that call, I only have so many calls available on Tuesday. And I will fill up, which is pretty exciting for me as a sleep consultant. And it just also means a lot of families are getting some really great help. I'm just going to read some of the comments that some people have written, just in case there's anything that I kind of missed that seems to, need to be answered. Someone mentioned about naps and short naps. So exactly what we talked about, self-settling strategy and set schedule. Those are the keys to those. A baby that needs to be rocked to sleep takes almost 30 minutes to get her to sleep. Totally. It takes lots of time, lots of effort, and it's a 14-month-old baby, so it means that your baby's not really a baby anymore. It means that your baby is getting, heavy, right? And it's not a long-term solution. At some point in time, we're going to have to stop the rocking. The process that I like to use is gradual. It means we get to rock until sleepy, until they no longer feel like they need to be rocked. That's the process I like to use. But basically, yes, like rocking is not a long-term solution. It is a temporary solution. At some point in time, we need to stop it, because I work with families that have 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds that still need to be rocked to sleep. And yeah, like it's just not something that we can physically do for forever, right? So in my opinion, sooner is better than later because you have many years of good sleep ahead of you if you, do it as early as 4 months of age. People say, when's the best time to start to break the habit of rocking? I'm like, now. Whatever your now is, as long as you have at least a 4-month-old baby. Obviously, if it's a newborn, then that would be different. But if your baby is 14 months old, then definitely now, right? Definitely don't want to keep going on and on with this for forever. When we put the baby in bed, do we pat her or just let herself soothe and fall asleep? That is a great question. So here's the thing. The percent boundaries are for all modes of parental help, okay? So I kind of, I like to do my hand thing to kind of give people an idea. So this is why I kind of say we have to ditch the soother, because if we're going, placing into bed at 90% asleep, but we have a pacifier that the baby is using until they are 100%, we're actually at 100% asleep, okay? So that's why we got to ditch the passy, okay? If we are placing a baby into bed at 90% asleep, but then we are patting our baby until they are 100% asleep, we are doing parental help until they are 100% asleep, okay? So my recommendation with patting is to also follow the percent boundary. So we can rock a baby until super, super sleepy, place into bed while super, super sleepy, pat while super, super sleepy, and as soon as you're like, I think they're just about asleep, we lift our hands off. And the clients that I work with, I have myself doing this strategy and basically that is what I'm doing. I'm like rocking, I'm placing in bed, and then I always hit that point when I'm like, my hands are just like lifted in the air, because that is my way of kind of like making sure I'm not going until the child is 100% asleep. We do need to hold firm to our percent boundaries, okay? There's a method called the shush pat method. Basically, that would be taking your rocked to sleep baby, placing your baby into bed, and just shushing, patting, until they eventually fall asleep. And then I will have people who have done this method call me and book a free call and be like, my baby still wakes up every 2 hours. And I'm like, yes, that is because we have taken rocking and we have switched it out with rocking and we are now shushing and patting. We need to actually take now shushing and patting and decrease it so that it is not done until the child falls asleep, but that it gets to the point where the shush pat is done with only, eyes open and awake, okay? So keep in mind these things. We can do some patting. We could do patting instead of rocking. We could do feeding, patting, rocking. We can do whichever, but our goal in the initial phase would be until 90% asleep. The child must do the last percent, the last 10%, his or herself. We're not going to do this until they're 100% asleep. I hope that answers that question. Okay. Any other questions, or do we feel like we have a really good understanding of this? Okay. All right. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you guys today. I hope it was helpful. I might check, obviously, kind of any questions later of anyone who watches the replay. But definitely, if you want to work with me, I do have some spots available. I have a sweet, awesome discount. Let's get started so that 3 weeks from now, that you will just be done the rocking and it's not a thing you have to do anymore, okay? Lovely chatting with everyone. Okay, bye.